Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Friday, February 20th, 2026.
And we have a wild one for you today.
We really do. If you are listening to this, congratulations. You've survived another week in what we laughably call linear time.
Barely survived, maybe.
All right, but I have to warn you right out of the gate, today's deep dive is really going to mess with your settings.
It is definitely a vertigo-inducing topic today.
Yeah, so I hope you're sitting down or at least not operating any heavy machinery that requires you to believe the past is actually over, because we are about to throw that entire concept right out the window.
We're looking at a source that essentially takes a sledgehammer to the two biggest pillars of our reality.
Which are?
The idea that time is a straight line, and the idea that our bodies are solid, permanent objects.
Vertigo is definitely the right word. We're going to be talking about high strangeness metaphysics. You know, the kind that makes you stare at your own hand and wonder if it's actually there. And then, just when you think we've gone totally off the deep end, we're going to pivot into this gritty, smoke-filled room in the 1960s for some actual documented psychic detective work.
It's a really rare combination. Usually you get the philosophy without the proof, or you get the ghost hunting without the underlying theory.
Right. But today, we get both.
I do.
So let's set the stage. We are diving deep into the archives. Specifically, we are looking at session 256 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth material.
The date of record on this is May 4th, 1966.
And before we get into the whole time travel and atomic restructuring thing, we have to get a bit of housekeeping out of the way.
Sure.
I need to declare that this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are here to learn, to question, and to explore the edges of human potential.
Exactly. So picture it. Elmira, New York. It's a Wednesday night in the mid-60s.
Imagine the smell of stale coffee and cigarettes in the room.
You have Jane Roberts, a writer, who is entering this dissociated trance state to speak for the personality essence known as Seth.
And you have her husband, Robert Butts, who Seth refers to as Joseph, sitting right there with a pen, just frantically writing everything down in shorthand.
Our mission today is to extract 3 really specific reality-bending insights from this session.
First up, we need to understand this concept called the spacious present.
Right, the idea that 145 BC isn't ancient history, but it's basically current events.
Second, we're going to look at the atomic body. This is Seth's claim that a personality shift can physically alter your biology instantly.
And third, we are going to play detective. We're going to analyze the envelope experiments from this specific session.
Because this isn't just high-minded philosophy. They actually tested this stuff in that room.
And honestly, the results are messy, they're weird, and they are scientifically startling.
It's that blend of high strangeness and hard data that makes session 256 so incredibly compelling.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the metaphysics because my brain is already kind of itching from the prep notes.
It'll do that.
Seth talks about the spacious present. Now, usually when I think about time, I think of it like a river.
Right, the classic metaphor.
Yeah, I'm in a little boat, the past is behind me, the future is around the bend. I can't see 145 BC because it's gone. It's way downstream.
That is the serial time model. And look, it makes perfect sense for the ego.
How so?
The ego is designed to navigate physical survival. If a tiger is chasing you, you need to know the tiger was there a second ago and is here right now.
Cause and effect.
Exactly. Linear sequence keeps you alive.
Right. If I didn't have linear time, I'd never get to work on time. I'd just be existing in this weird blob of now.
But Seth argues that this serial time is just a localized illusion. It's a user interface for physical reality.
A user interface. I like that.
He introduces the term spacious present. He suggests that the inner self, the soul, or the entity that is actually projecting your life, is not in that boat with you.
Where is it?
The inner self is the water. Or, better yet, think of the inner self as a helicopter hovering above that river.
Oh, so the helicopter sees the bend in the river I just passed and the rapids I'm about to hit all at the exact same time.
Precisely. To the helicopter, the past and the future are both just landscape. They're both entirely visible right now.
Wow.
In session 256, Seth is very specific about this. I'll read you the quote. He says, 145 BC, 145 AD, 1,000 years in your past and 1,000 years in your present all exist now.
All exist now. I mean, that's a great bumper sticker, but practically speaking, what does that actually mean? Is the Roman Empire happening right now in some parallel dimension?
In a way, yes. Think of it like a radio.
Okay.
You are currently tuned to station 2026. You hear the news, the music, the static of 2026.
Right.
But just because you are tuned there, does that mean station 1966 or station 145 BC has
No.
suddenly stopped broadcasting?
No, they're all on the airwaves simultaneously. I just can't hear them because of my dial.
Correct. They are all broadcasting in the spacious present. Seth argues that your past lives aren't like beads on a string where you finish one, tie it off, and move to the next.
They're all happening at once.
Exactly.
See, this is where I have to push back a little bit, or at least play the skeptic for you.
Go for it.
Reincarnation is almost always sold to us as a school.
The grade school model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a peasant in the Middle Ages, I learn humility, and then I die. Then, because I passed that test, I get to be a charitable merchant in the 1800s.
Right.
If they are all happening at once, how do I learn? How does the soul actually progress?
That is the million-dollar question. And Seth calls that sequential view, the school view, a grossly simplified nursery rhyme.
A nursery rhyme.
Yeah, a story we tell ourselves because our egos just can't grasp the multidimensional truth of it.
So what is the truth, according to him?
He describes it as a multidimensional gestalt. So imagine an incredibly talented actor. This actor is so skilled that he can play Hamlet on stage A, Macbeth on stage B, and King Lear on stage C, all at the exact same moment.
That is a very busy actor.
Extremely. Now that actor is your inner self. The characters, Hamlet, Macbeth, and you, are the egos.
So I'm just one role?
Yes. You are all acting out your dramas simultaneously in the spacious present. You only think you're separate because you can only see your own stage.
But the actor knows about all of them.
Exactly. The actor is the prime identity, feels the emotions, and learns the lessons from all of you simultaneously.
So my past life isn't a memory at all. It's a guy living right now, just on a different stage.
Precisely. And this is the real so what moment for you listening. If all your lives are happening now, it completely changes how you view karma or trauma.
Because it's not in the past.
Right. You aren't just a victim of what happened to you in 145 BC or even 10 years ago. You are currently forming that past, just as you are forming this present.
Wait, explain that. How am I forming the past? The past is written, the ink is dry.
Seth disputes that entirely. He says the past is dynamic.
Dynamic.
Because the actor is connected to all the roles. If you, the listener hearing this right now, have a massive breakthrough today, if you truly learn forgiveness today, that signal ripples through the entire network.
So I could theoretically heal a trauma in my past life by changing my mindset today.
Yes. Seth implies that the backpack of rocks you think you're carrying from your past isn't a static weight. You're actively putting rocks in or taking them out right now.
And that changes the weight for the you in the past as well.
It changes the entire gestalt.
Man, that is heavy. But it's also incredibly empowering. It means I'm not stuck.
You are never stuck in the spacious present. You are always the dynamic creator of your entire experience.
Okay, speaking of multiple roles and dynamic creators, Seth brings up a very famous psychological case in this session to explain this whole structure.
The three faces of Eve.
Yes. Oh, this part is fascinating.
For those who might not know, the three faces of Eve was this massive case study in the 50s. It eventually became a movie.
It documented a woman named Chris Costner Sizemore.
Right, who had what we now call dissociative identity disorder. She had three distinct personalities. There was Eve White, Eve Black, and Jane.
And usually psychologists look at that as a pathology. You know, something went wrong, a trauma happened, and the mind fractured.
Absolutely. But Seth uses it as the perfect analogy for the soul. He says, look, reincarnation is just like the three faces of Eve.
But usually the personalities are separated by what we perceive as time and death.
Right. In Eve's case, the barriers were down, and they all happened in one single biological life.
But here's the part that actually made me drop my coffee mug when I was reading it.
The physical changes.
Yes. Seth claims something about Eve that I don't think even the doctors at the time fully realized. Or at least he frames it in a way that is scientifically impossible by our current mainstream standards.
It is the mind-blowing twist of the session. Seth says, there was not one shared body in the case of the four Eves. There were four separate bodies.
4 separate bodies. Now hold on. She didn't clone herself. She was sitting in a chair in a doctor's office. One woman. How can she have 4 bodies? Is he just using a metaphor?
Seth insists it is entirely literal. And to understand this, we have to look at the atomic nature of reality.
Okay, lay some physics on me.
Seth reminds us that the physical body appears permanent to us. It looks like a solid statue. But it is actually a flowing river of atoms.
Right. I'm with you on the biology there. We know our cells are constantly regenerating. I think the popular stat is that every 7 years we have a totally new body.
Well, Seth says it happens infinitely faster than that. He says atoms are constantly dying, being replaced, appearing and disappearing in fractions of a second.
So the body is like a standing wave in a river.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
The water, the atoms, is always flowing through it, but the shape of the wave remains the same.
So what holds the shape? If the atoms are always leaving, why do I still look like me?
The idea, the
Yeah.
consciousness, the ego. The mind is the magnet that holds the iron filings in the shape of a body.
Oh, wow. So Seth argues that when a different personality took over, say when Eve White switched to Eve Black, the actual magnet changed.
Exactly. The dominant ego changed, so the underlying pattern holding the atoms together changed.
That's wild.
The chemical and atomic structure of the body realigned so drastically to match the new ego that it was effectively a brand new body.
He mentions allergies, right, because this is the part that really feels like the smoking gun to me.
It is the physiological proof he offers. He points out a specific detail from the case study. 2 of the personalities were allergic to nylon, and 2 were not.
Think about that for a second. An allergy isn't just a bad mood. It is a biological histamine reaction.
It involves antibodies.
It's hardware.
Exactly. If you're allergic to peanuts, you are allergic to peanuts. You can't just think it away.
Usually.
Right. But here, Seth says, obviously 2 personalities made such changes in the physical organism that the allergy was brought on.
So when the non-allergic personality took over, what happened to the antibodies? Did they just vanish into thin air?
According to this theory, yes. The instruction code for the allergy was no longer being broadcast by the dominant consciousness.
So the physical manifestation just collapsed instantly.
It had to. The new magnet didn't include the pattern for the allergy.
That is terrifying and empowering at the exact same time.
It really is.
It suggests that our biology is so much more fluid than we give it credit for. We talk a lot about genetic predisposition these days, but Seth is basically suggesting epigenetics at the speed of thought.
Epigenetics at the speed of thought. That's the perfect phrase for it.
Thanks.
If you are in a persistent state of fear, or if you are strongly identifying as a victim, you are literally structuring your atoms to build a victim body or a sick body.
So bringing this all back to the spacious present, if personalities in one single life can have entirely different bodies based on who is driving the bus,
Then past lives are just different personalities of the same inner self, wearing completely different atomic structures.
it completely blurs the line between psychology and physics. Your personality is the physics.
It is.
And that leads us perfectly into the relationship between Seth, Jane, and Rob.
Right, because we need to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, a skeptical listener might be asking right now, well, is Seth just a split personality of Jane? Is this just another Eve situation happening in Elmira?
It is the natural skepticism we have to address.
Yeah.
Is Seth just Jane's subconscious acting out a character?
And Seth addresses this head-on in session 256,
He does. He talks about the prime identity.
which sounds like a blockbuster sci-fi movie title.
It really does. But he explains that Seth, Jane, who he calls Rupert, and Robert, who he calls Joseph, all actually branch from the exact same original identity.
So they're a family.
Closer than family. They're the same source material. Imagine a massive tree.
Okay.
The prime identity is the trunk. Seth is a branch way high up in the canopy. He is graduated from the physical system entirely.
And Jane and Rob.
They are branches lower down on the trunk, still actively growing in the physical world.
So Seth is essentially a future version of Jane, or a more evolved aspect of her.
In a way, yes. Because of the spacious present, time is fluid. He describes himself as a future aspect of the identity they were once a part of.
Let me grab the quote here. He says, I am the prime identity that you were part of. In the spacious present, you see we are one, yet entirely individual.
It explains why their connection is so uniquely strong. He
Yeah.
isn't some random alien beaming in from Mars.
Right.
He's the older brother who already went to college and is calling back home to help his siblings with their heavy homework.
That is a great analogy. And because of the spacious present, they're all existing and interacting at once.
Right. And he really emphasizes that he isn't taking over Jane like a demonic possession.
No spinning heads here.
None. He calls it a cooperative bridge. He uses Jane's psychological mechanism to speak, but he emphasizes over and over that he is an independent, sovereign individual.
It's funny, though, there is a moment in this session where he talks about Rob's health.
Oh, the back pain.
Yeah, Rob had been sick or had a really bad back issue, and Seth says it was unfortunately necessary.
Yes. That's a bit of tough love from the higher self.
Right. Sorry you were in agonizing pain, but it was necessary. Why was it necessary?
Seth explains that the physical illness forced Rob to stop looking outward at the physical world and start looking inward.
It grounded him.
It made him question the nature of his own mental reactions. Seth says it was the specific catalyst that prepared him for the Seth material in the first place.
So the pain was the bell that woke him up.
Often, it is.
Okay, so we have the theory down. Time is an illusion, the body is an atomic printout, and we are all connected by a prime identity.
Yes.
But Seth and Jane and Rob were obsessed with proving it. They didn't just want to sit around and talk philosophy. They wanted hard data.
That is exactly what makes the Seth material so unique compared to other channeled texts. They did hundreds of controlled experiments.
And in session 256, we have two distinct ones.
We do.
And the vibe here, it shifts. It goes from this cosmic classroom feel straight into detective noir.
It really does get chilling.
Yeah.
Let's talk about experiment 1. This is the Dr. In-Stream experiment.
And for context, this was the 60th experiment of this specific type they had done.
So, the setup. Jane is in a trance, her eyes are closed. She is trying to tune into a target person, a Dr. In-Stream.
And she has no physical cues whatsoever.
None. She is just reaching out with her consciousness into the spacious present to locate this person.
And the details she gets right away are dark.
Very atmospheric. Seth immediately says through her, a connection with the death.
Oof. Great start to a Wednesday night.
Right. And then he clarifies, he picks up on sensations of strangulation.
Now stop right there. Sensations of strangulation. That is incredibly visceral. Does that mean the person was actually strangled?
Not necessarily, and Seth clarifies this point nicely. This is a really key nuance in any kind of psychic or non-local work.
How so?
Often, the medium picks up the emotional reality or the bodily feeling, not just the cold physical facts. If someone died of an asthma attack or severe panic or even drowning, it might feel like strangulation to the receiver.
Ah, I see. So the sensation is the raw data. He also throws out some numbers. He mentions the number 23.
Which could be an age of death, could be 23 years ago. He's fishing a little bit for the precise connection, but the signal is very strong.
And then the setting. He says cold, damp weather. Maybe England, but someplace cold and foggy.
It's very Sherlock Holmes.
It really is. But the part that struck me the most was his description of an object. He describes a ring, or two intertwined rings.
Yeah, he says, not the type of ring worn on a finger, but larger.
And he adds, and I just love the honesty of this, he says, nor do I know their purpose.
That is actually a huge mark of authenticity for me.
Why?
A fake psychic creates a narrative.
Yeah.
They want to tie a neat bow on it. They'd say, I see the rings of a lost lover.
Right, they make it dramatic.
Exactly. But Seth just reports the raw, confusing data. I see big rings. I don't know what they do. I see a buckle. I see a blotter.
It shows the real texture of the information coming through. It's not a 4K movie playing in Jane's head. It's fragmented. It's flashes of insight.
And it shows that consciousness can truly travel. Jane is physically sitting in Elmira, New York, but her awareness is groping around in the life of this Dr. In-Stream.
Picking up these really distinct sensory details, the fog, the constriction in the throat, the cold metal rings.
But where we do have the immediate verifiable feedback is the second experiment from this session.
The envelope experiment.
Yes, this is the 51st one of these they've done.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really fun and maybe a little controversial depending on how strict your scientific method is.
Okay, let's set the scene for the listeners. Jane is blindfolded, or at least her eyes are tightly closed.
Right.
Rob has prepared a sealed double envelope. Inside is a newspaper article. Jane has absolutely no idea what it is. She holds it to her forehead.
The object inside is an article written by Peggy Gallagher. It's from the Elmira Star-Gazette, and it was published that very day, May 4th, 1966.
And the article is about a woman named Mrs. Bessie Berry.
Okay, so we have an article about Bessie Berry written by Peggy Gallagher. What does Seth get?
The very first thing he says is just one word, quick.
Quick, just quick.
Yeah. Now, Rob analyzes this later in his notes. He notes that Mrs. Berry was the first Negro using the language of the newspaper at the time to be elected to the local school board.
Okay.
She was the first. Seth said quick. Rob draws a connection there between quick and first, or fast.
I have to be the skeptic here for a second. That feels like a massive stretch. Quick does not mean first.
It is a stretch if you are thinking purely logically. But if you know how the subconscious actually works, think about dream logic, it loves puns. It loves loose associations.
The first becomes fast, which becomes quick.
Exactly. It's a game of telephone in the deep mind.
Okay, I'll give you a maybe on that one. But what else did he get?
The next impression is 4 plus 2.
Okay, now we're doing psychic math.
Stay with me. The date of the session was May 4th. The year was 1966. 4 plus 2 is 6.
Again, that's bordering on numerology. It's interesting, but not a smoking gun.
Fair enough. But then he gets the word SEP, as in the abbreviation for September, or the number 9.
And how does that connect?
Mrs. Berry won the election when the polls closed at exactly 9 p.m., and the election itself was exactly 9 hours long.
Okay, getting a specific number like 9 connected to an exact time in the article is definitely more impressive.
But here is the direct hit. This is the one that you can't really explain away. He mentions initials, a J and a G.
J and G.
The author of the article is Peggy Gallagher. That's the G.
Boo.
Yeah. And the J, it could be Jane herself, who actually knew the author casually, or it could be a reference to a specific graphic on the back of the clipping. But the G is an undeniable direct hit on the byline.
And there's something about forgiveness in the notes, right?
Yes, Seth mentions an impression of forgiveness. This seems to be what paranormal researchers call a crossover.
What happened?
Jane had recently received a memorial card in the mail for a priest she knew as a child who had just died. Rob theorizes that her mind associated the death and religious vibe of the priest with the concept of forgiveness.
And she overlaid that personal memory onto the reading of the envelope.
Exactly. That's the fascinating part of these sessions. It is never a clean fiber optic telephone line. It's static, it's symbols, it's Jane's own memories getting in the way of Seth's data.
Seth even comments on socks or feet at one point. He gets a strong impression of feet or socks.
Feet or socks? Why? Was there a shoe ad on the back?
They couldn't find a single connection to the article. It's just random. Maybe Jane's foot was asleep while she was in trance.
That's hilarious.
But the fact that they
That's
meticulously record the misses, the socks, the confusion, the wrong numbers, alongside the direct hits like the name Gallagher and the number 9, it makes the data feel so much more real.
It does, and it really defies statistical probability when you stack it all up.
Completely.
If I hand you a sealed envelope right now, could you guess the author's last initial? Could you guess the relevant time of day mentioned in the text?
Highly unlikely.
And yet, Jane did it repeatedly over hundreds of sessions.
It reinforces the whole theme of the episode. The experiment proves the metaphysics.
How so? Connect the dots for us.
If Jane can read the contents of a sealed envelope without her eyes, her consciousness is not limited by physical space.
Right.
If she can sense the strangulation of someone far away in time and space, she is actively navigating the spacious present.
It's proof of concept. The mind is non-local. We are part of a prime identity that has back-end access to all the data in the universe.
And there's one more really cool contextual image provided in our source material that ties this up, the dream manuscript.
Ah, yes. This is technically from Experiment 52, which was the next one they did, but it absolutely connects to the theme. It's a handwritten page about dreams.
The headline on it is, "Do we receive or give suggestions in our dreams?"
And there's a note scribbled next to it that says, "Try to change dreams. Also manipulate dreams."
It ties it all together beautifully, just as we can become lucid in a dream and actively change the ending.
Seth is telling us we can become lucid in physical life.
Exactly. We're supposed to manipulate our reality, not just suffer through it like passengers.
So let's bring this all in for a landing. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
From 145 BC to 1966 to 2026.
We've talked about atoms appearing and disappearing, changing physical allergies, and reading sealed envelopes with your forehead.
It is a complete, staggering worldview.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's say you're driving to work right now, or you're at the gym. How does knowing this help you tomorrow?
It helps you by removing the heavy shackles of linearity. You aren't a victim of your past. That past is alive and malleable right now.
It's totally dynamic.
It is dynamic. As you change your mindset today, as you change your atomic structure today through your beliefs and your focus, you are actually rippling back and healing that past.
And you are creating your future simultaneously.
You are the prime identity in this exact moment. You are the actor on the stage. You can literally change the script.
I love that.
And practically, it encourages you to trust your daily impressions.
Yes, the hunches.
Jane got socks and strangulation and the number 9. Some made perfect sense, some didn't make any sense at all. But she trusted the flow of information.
We all get those hunches.
We do. And Seth would say those are direct communications from your inner self. Don't ignore them.
Trust the hunch, even if it's socks.
Especially if it's socks.
Okay, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. We talked about the allergy example earlier, how a personality shift created or destroyed a physical allergy instantly.
Right, the nylon allergy.
So ask yourself this. If your body changes its atomic structure when you change your mood or personality, what are you doing to your physical health right now based on the role you are deciding to play today?
That is a profound question.
Mm.
Are you playing the role of the stress victim? Or are you playing the vibrant creator? Because your atoms are listening.
Your atoms are listening. That is going to stay with me all week.
It definitely should.
We want to give a huge thank you to the Seth material and the publisher, New Awareness Network, for this incredible source material. This stuff is absolute gold.
It is. And if you want to dive deeper, and you really should because we only scratched the surface of session 256 today, you need to go straight to the source.
Go to sethcenter.com for the early sessions. Buy the books. Read the raw data for yourself. I promise you it is better than any sci-fi you will ever read because it might actually be true.
Absolutely. It's a journey worth taking.
Thank you for joining us on this mind-bending Friday deep dive. I hope your spacious present is full of good vibes.
And good creations.
We'll see you in the future, or the past, or right now. Bye.